Good morning, everyone. Welcome to today's webinar. This is Rashmi and hope you're all having a wonderful Wednesday. Today we are going to talk about collectibles and personal use assets. What I want to look at today is what are collectibles and personal use assets, new rules for pre and post 1st July 2011 assets. I will also talk about restrictions and the audit procedure. Before we proceed further, I would like to tell you that I have uploaded handouts which you can download and refer to it, and it is it must be there on your desktop. I have a bit of cold today, so my voice will be a bit different. Sorry about that. So let's move on. One of the reasons that people set up SMSF is for the investment choice that it provides, which also includes the ability to invest in collectibles. As a result of the Cooper review, there are now a number of restrictions on how they can be maintained. These restrictions make it very difficult to maintain, but at least did not go as far as Cooper review's demand that SMSFs be banned from investing in this class of investments. So the regulations do not prohibit from investing, but the regulations prescribe a set of rules which trustees must adhere to if they make such investments. The rules applying to them are important to understand, and as a starting point, we need to understand what exactly is a personal use asset. Regulation 13.18 AA1 of the SIS regulations sets out what are generally considered, and it specifies the assets that are taken to be collectibles and personal use assets as artwork, jewelry, antiques, artifacts. Coins and banknotes are collectibles if their value exceeds their face value. Bullion coins are collectibles if their value exceeds their face value and they are traded at a price which is above the spot price of their metal content. It includes postage stamps, boats, wine, motor vehicles. It also includes recreational boats and membership of social clubs. All seems relatively straightforward, but there are still items that don't fit the list of ins or outs. For example, diamonds, if you take it alone, or if you set in a jewelry, that makes a complete difference. Now let's move on to the next slide and talk about the rules. The new rules create two kinds of collectible assets. First one is those held before 1st July 2011, and the second one is those acquired on or after that date. So what are the rules? For assets acquired prior to 1st July 2011, the law provides for a transitional period, which means the fund has until 1st July 2016 to either comply with the restrictions or they must dispose of the asset. This means that if such an investment was held before 1st July 2011, the rules do not apply until 1st July 2016, at which time you will require to comply. The reason for granting this particular asset this way was the desire not to flood the market with collectible assets that all had to be sold in about the same time, likely depressing the market. But for the assets required on or after 1st July 2011, the restrictions apply immediately. So what are the restrictions? Like I was saying, rather than simply ban investment in these kind of assets, it was decided to impose restrictions. This was to ensure that they were held for investment purposes only and they're not held for auxiliary purposes. The restrictions imposed includes they are not to be leased to a related party, not to be stored in the private residence of a related party, they must be insured in the name of the fund, they cannot be used by a related party, and decision on how they are to be stored must be documented. The last one is transfer must be at a market value, which should be determined by an independent valuer. You must have noticed that a related party is involved. What is a related party? Related party is defined in Section 1 of SIS Act. It is defined quite widely in SIS Act. This means it includes not just the members and relative of members, but also includes any trust, partnership, or companies controlled by a member or where members control 50% or more of the equity. It also includes a standard employer and its related entities. Relative of the member means parent, grandparent, brother, sister, includes uncle, aunt, nephew, niece. It also includes the spouse of the member or the spouse of any of these individuals. It includes a lineal descendant or the adopted child. Moving forward, I'll take up each restriction and try to explain with a few examples. So, collectibles are not to be leased to a related party. One way of making income from collectibles is to lease them out. In the past, they were leased to related parties, such as business owned by one of the members of the fund. These restrictions will no longer be permitted. This does not mean that the assets cannot be leased out. It just means it cannot be leased to a related party. You can only lease them to an unrelated party, and the lease must be on arm's length terms. There are a few questions here for you. My first question is, SMSF invested in collectibles prior to 15 December 1999, and they have been leased to a related party ever since. Do the regulations apply to these investments? We have already discussed this in one of the previous slides. For the existing assets of the fund at 1st July 2011, the fund has until 1st July 2016 to comply with the standards by unwinding the lease. Another question relates to SMSF leasing its artwork to an art gallery. It can lease provided the art gallery is not owned by a related party and the lease is on arm's length terms. Let's consider another situation where the art gallery is owned by a member or a related party. If the fund acquired the artwork on or after 1st July 2011, it cannot enter into a lease with any related party of the fund in relation to the artwork. This means it cannot be leased to the art gallery if it is owned by a related party of the fund. It doesn't matter whether the lease agreement is formal or informal arrangements under which a person uses or controls the use of the asset, and it also includes arrangements where no amount of money is paid to the fund in exchange for the use of the asset. You can check SMSFR 2009/4 for more detailed explanation. I'll move on to the next restriction, which is they are not to be stored in the private residence of a related party. One of the concerns of who oppose investing in collectible assets was a concern in some circumstances. Let's take a collectible car that should be kept at home and could be used by a member or relative, which is in contradiction to the sole purpose test. It was then decided to make it explicit that asset in a private residence was to be banned. First thing we need to know is what is covered under private residence. Private residence is not defined, so would take its ordinary meaning. This would mean that it could not be held in the home of one of the members or another type of residential property used by a member, such as a holiday home. It does not, though, cover a business property or an investment property. This means that the asset should be kept secure off-site, and usually this will mean additional expense for the fund. This can also be seen as a means of making it more difficult and costly to invest, so making it practically impossible without making it legally impossible to invest. My first question to you is, can it be stored in the business premises of a related party of the fund? So, trustees are permitted to store in premises owned by a related party, such as a purpose-built storage facility, provided that the premises are not part of the private residence of a related party. A private residence includes all parts of a private dwelling above or below the ground, the land on which private residence is situated, and all other buildings on that land, such as garage, sheds. However, it is important to remember, if it is on display, you will be in breach of Regulation 13.18 AA6, which prohibits the use of the asset by a related party. You also need to remember you are required to keep a record of the reasons for the decision you have made regarding the storage. So let's move on to the next slide, which is about the documentation requirement. The regulations require a written record of the reasons for the decision relating to the storage of the item. This decision could, for example, be documented in the minutes of the meeting of the trustees. It must be recorded in writing, can be either in hard copy or can be kept electronically, and must be maintained by the fund for at least 10 years. This is to provide additional assurance that the asset is kept somewhere secure. Also, the auditor may ask for a copy of this record during their compliance audit, and this will allow the auditor to verify that the asset is being properly held. Moving on, they must be insured in fund's name. Requiring the asset to be insured is another means of making it practically very tough to purchase, as they are difficult to insure. It also adds to the cost of having it. Collectibles, other than a membership of a sporting or social club, must be insured in the name of the fund and not in the name of the trustee of the fund. It also means that if it is leased to a non-related party and that party insures the asset, it must still also be insured in the name of the fund. Let's take an example. If a painting is leased to a gallery and that gallery insures the asset, there must still be insurance in the name of the fund. I think this makes sense. If the asset is destroyed, it is an asset of the fund, and the fund should be the party that has the insurance. This means that these assets cannot be insured under a trustee's home and content insurance. However, they may be insured under separate policies or collectively under the one policy. Also, it must be sourced within 7 days of purchase, which is very difficult to get it. Trustees who fail to do so will commit an offense. Now, let's move on to the next restriction, which is about use by a related party. To stop members and related parties having the enjoyment of the asset, the law explicitly prohibits the use by a related party. Use would include the ability to view a painting or to drive or even be a passenger in a classic car. Let's take another example about an artwork. Artwork is used by being displayed. Therefore, displaying artwork by hanging it for viewing in the premises of a related party is not permitted. This prohibition extends to hanging artwork in business premises of a related party where it is visible to parties such as clients and employees. I think this will be particularly troublesome for the owner of a classic car or a vintage car. They cannot drive the vehicle for any reason, including taking it for a maintenance drive. The last restriction we are going to talk about is transfer to a related party. To ensure that a related party does not receive current day benefit from a transaction, for example, by purchasing the item from the fund at below market value, and also that the transaction does not cause detriment to the fund by selling at below market value. The law requires that any transfer to be at market value, and there must be an independent valuer to ascertain what that market value is. There can be three situations. If the fund acquired the asset on or after 1st July 2011, the sale must be at a market price. And if the fund acquired the asset before 1st July 2011 and sells it to a related party on or after 1st July 2016, it also must comply with the new rules. But if the fund acquired the asset before 1st July 2011 and sells it before 1st July 2016, the transaction does not need to be supported by a valuation. However, the transaction must still take place on arm's length terms. For some assets, this may be quite difficult, if not impossible, if there is only a small market and no specialist valuables are operating in that particular market. Next slide will talk about who is a qualified independent valuer. A valuer will be qualified either through holding formal valuation qualifications or by being considered to have specific knowledge and experience by their particular professional community. This is best demonstrated by being a current member of a professional body such as Australian Antique and Art Dealers Association, and there are many other associations too like this. A valuer is independent if they are independent of the interest of the fund. This means that the valuer should not be a member of the fund or a related party of the fund, for example, an investment partner. We are going to the last slide and very close to finishing the webinar. It will talk about the audit procedure. So what does an auditor need to do when checking SMSF's compliance with the new rules? If the asset is a type that does not have any form of title, as an auditor, you need to obtain evidence to confirm existence and ownership. It includes minutes relating to acquisition of the asset, can be invoice and evidence of the payment. You can cite the asset, insurance policy or a premium payment. He can have a look at the lease documents if it's leased to another party. As an auditor, you also need to identify which of the valuation methods outlined in the ATO guidelines the trustee has used. It can be market-based, income-based, asset-based, cost-based, and profitability-based. This is to determine market value and test the value by obtaining documentary evidence to support the valuation. Verify that the method used to value is consistent with that disclosed in the accounting policy notes, and they're also in line with the ATO guidelines. Where the trustee has undertaken the valuation, assess whether the valuation process used is fair and reasonable, was undertaken in good faith, using reliable data and complies with the ATO guidelines. This is the end of the webinar. I hope you have enjoyed. If you have any questions, please email me at rashmi@trustdeed.com.au. Also, we are running series of seminars, and if you like to gain more information, please register yourself on our website. The link is on that slide. Have a great day ahead, and thanks for your time. Bye.